Everybody, I'm going to tell you now. You're on?
Welcome back to the Joe Mobley Show live. I am Joe Mobley, your host, and tonight we've got an awesome episode. As usual, we've got some returning guests, the one and the only Gary Binford, and longtime friend of the show, Dimis, Christophy. Guys, I am glad to be back live with you. We do have baby boy Gabriel, and he's a couple weeks old, and mom and baby are doing great. Thank you so much for everyone who watched and engaged with those pre-recorded episodes that I did. And just another shout out to those guests. They really coordinated with me to help me to get something to put out to you all. So my show would go on uninterrupted. So thanks to them. Thanks to you. Let's get into the show. Gary Binford, Dimis, how are you guys?
I'm doing fine, Joe, and thanks for having me back.
Doing great.
Can I make a comment, Joe? I love your title of Fireproof Faith. But I must say, my faith is not fireproof. I'm only, righteous or anything that you would call anything a person of faith, a believer, only through the imputed righteousness of Christ. And 1 Corinthians 10:12 says, therefore, let him who thinks he stand take heed lest he falls. And, the enemy is always after us. Your most vulnerable times are when you're down really low and he'll say, give it up. God's not coming through for you. Or when you've got a big blessing or a big victory and you think you're on top of the world. So I understand my faith is only as strong as my obedience and staying close to my Savior.
Awesome. That is why I want you back on the show. The panel show was awesome. It was a good time, but it was difficult to get into the meat of some of these things. And the guests, I don't know if you saw the comments. Obviously, you don't see the emails and messages I get. But the guests absolutely loved you. I was like, people are going to watch this episode just because Gary Binford's in it. And like you said, not because anything to do with Gary Binford, but like this guy is bringing the truth that is the word of Jesus, and people are afraid to do it. And here you are, and Dimis, and lots of people, especially on the internet. The world does not like the name of Christ. You can peddle anything else, any other doctrine, any other theology, and they don't care, which is a clue, folks.
Right.
That's called a clue. But you shout the name of Jesus, and everyone is up in arms. Everyone's got something to say. And you said so many things that just blew my mind. I'll bring one or two of them up in the episode. One of them's just been ringing in my mind a lot for weeks now. It's been...
No, Joe, that wasn't what I said. That's and congratulations on your new baby. That's the baby ringing in your ears. That's what you're hearing.
Maybe. Oh my goodness.
It's not me. It's Bambino. Number what? 4?
Number 4, yeah.
Amen. That's a blessing.
He just caught up to me.
Oh yeah. Man, it's been a wild ride. Dimis, I see you all the time. I saw you the other day at the Loudoun County School Board. And God bless your brother for being out there in the cold with us. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm fired up again. So I went in there. I don't take notes with me. I just say what's on my mind, and I just let them have it, man. It's well deserved, and I wish I had more time.
Oh yeah.
You already know what's going on. It's this is national news at this point. Anything happens, we're ground zero. Everything happens here, and it just spreads. It's been spreading, which I'm very happy about that. Very happy that it's been spreading all over the nation, and parents are standing up. It's enough is enough.
Absolutely. So that's one of the main points of this episode. It's that as a believer, we have a responsibility. Everyone talks about duty, civic duty. Maybe that manifests in voting. Maybe that manifests in demanding accountability, writing letters, whatever that manifests in. But us as believers and the community of believers out in the nation, from Loudoun County all the way to the other side of the country, there are believers everywhere. We have a duty, and that's why that last episode was called "The Role of the Believer," or responsibility. I forget what it was called. And I just felt like some things got left on the table, and I'm sure that you gentlemen felt the same way. So Gary, what do you got for us? I know you distilled a couple of thoughts for us about what it is that we need to be doing. You brought us some truth about what it means to be a follower of Christ. And if you want to recap that, I don't know, it might be a different audience here, then feel free. But the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, it all starts. There's a very important thing we have to understand. If you don't buy into Genesis 1:1, just burn your Bible and forget about it. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. If you don't believe that, if you don't believe that God created everything, then this conversation is basically meaningless for you, because you won't understand where truth comes from. You see, the problem we have in this nation, and the problem you have anywhere around the world, is where do you get your truth from? Does your truth come through the mainstream media? Does it come from your friends? Does it come from hearsay? Does it come from tradition? If God started everything and there was nothing before God, all truth emanates from God. Zero. That's it. There's nothing else. So only, you want to know where the truth is, you go to his word, you go to the Bible. We fell. This earth fell. Adam and Eve, when they ate of the forbidden fruit, they sinned. They brought sin into the world, turned this over into a fallen society where everybody that comes through birth of a woman is born in sin. And that's why Jesus went to the cross. God sent his son, God in the flesh, Emmanuel, God with us, brought him here to pay a price we can't pay. Once you understand that, then you understand that everybody in the world, regardless of what religion they're in, are in bondage. They're in bondage and they can't get out of it. Only Jesus can set you free. He sets you free, not only from sin, but all types of bondage. And because of that, you can live free. Now, this country was birthed free under Judeo-Christian values. That's what the Constitution was all about, for us to have freedom. Now you say, well, the founding fathers had slaves and this and that. Yeah, but everybody is still fallen individuals. We're still in sin. We're not perfect anymore. So people are going to do bad things. But the bottom line is, if you are a follower of Jesus Christ now, you belong to him. You're no longer black or white or Asian or whatever race you were. You're no longer male or female. You're no longer rich or poor. That's no longer what defines you. Those are man-made definitions. You are now defined as a believer, a follower of the way, somebody that belongs to Christ. And your marching orders, your playbook now is the Holy Bible. So that's where I come from. And because of that, there are two things that a believer must do. Number one, you're commanded to go and make disciples. In other words, tell people that Jesus is the only way. If Jesus is not the only way, then he lied. He can't pay for his own sins, much less ours. Forget it. It's gone. And we're supposed to make disciples and bring people to Christ. That's number one. But he also told us we were to be salt and light, because we're the only ones that really have the truth. So if we're not being salt and light, then the world gets dark. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. See, when evolution was being taken out of put into the schools at the expense of creation and the Bible being taken out of the schools, as believers, as salt and light, that was the time to go down. And the pastors and the PTA Association were supposed to go down. No, this isn't happening. Same thing with abortion. Same thing with perverting God's plan for marriage. If believers were salt and light, we would have never found our way to where we are. However, the Marxists, communists, they've been trying to take this country over for 100 years, and they infiltrated the church, they infiltrated Hollywood, they infiltrated the unions, they infiltrated the schools, academia, they infiltrated everything and started to twist things around, discredit the Bible, take the Bible out, take all the truth of God out. They've gotten it out of the schools, they've got it out of government, and they've got it out of the workplace. So people just think what they see here now with all this communists and Marx and everything that Karl Marx has started, they just think this is normal. It's not. So we've got to go back to be salt and light. If we had been salt and light, we wouldn't have to be political. because it would have never gotten this far. But because we weren't, now we're in the sauce. We got to pray to God to get us out of it. But now we're going to have to fight to get our country back. And we got to get political.
Yeah, we are in the sauce for sure. And people say, Joe, why do you need to be a political activist? I said, I'm not a political activist. What do you mean you're not a political activist? I said, no, I stand on the truth. That's it. If you say there's no such thing as a boy or a girl, I'm going to say, no, that's not true. It's not a political statement. And I tell people this, I'm not an apologeticist, but I love to get into a philosophical or theological discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, because I don't want to be right. I want to be living in accordance with what is true. I believe that the Bible is true. Spoiler alert, it is. But I can stand on it from beginning to end, from the garden to, that last verse in Revelation. I don't know everything in there, but I know the justification for my faith and why X, Y, or Z. So wanting to be in accordance with what is true, I think is just like what you said. We should have been salt and light when the opportunity first presented itself, because now it seems like we're political activists. It's like, no. We're still standing on that firm foundation, the truth, the rock. That's it. Like, God is so many things, love and gracious, but God is truth. Everything about him is true. There's, like you said, if he had sinned, he couldn't have been the sacrifice for us all if Jesus had sinned. So I can't stop. Like, every day, I was at a thing today, and someone said, well, why do you do this? Why do you need to be a political activist? And I said, false, fake news. I'm not a political activist. I'm a follower of Jesus, and I speak the truth. If I think something needs to be said by me, and something needs to be said right now. And unfortunately, in today's time, all three of those things is all the time.
Well, Joe, if you look at what happened, let's go back to the garden. See, first off, the first mistake, Adam didn't protect his woman, and she wasn't called Eve yet; she was still called woman. He was the head of the household. If there's going to be any talking to anybody, it should have been to him. See, and the problem was the snake, or Satan. He doesn't give you a lie per se. He doesn't necessarily want to give you a flat out lie. All he wants to do is get you to put a shred of doubt into what God said. Now, God said, if you eat from that tree, you'll surely die. And see, and Satan goes, well, you won't die. He's always trying to put a shred of doubt. And this is what's happened with us. Like, once the truth of God has been taken out of the schools, out of the workplace, and out of the government, where is it? It's in behind the walls of the church. And as believers now, you're going to struggle to be salt and light in public. So people come up to you and say, your truth is your truth, and my truth is my truth. There's no such thing. There is the truth. And all he wants to do is put a little doubt. Well, you sure Jesus is the only way? Well, how comes there's Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists and Jews? And is God going to send all of those people to heaven? No, he's not saying we're born in sin. We're all born. We're heading there. We gotta get the ticket out of there. See, he's always trying to put doubt in people's mind. And the problem is, so many people now have no idea what's in the Bible, what's in the Word of God. They don't know truth when they hear it. And when you don't know truth when you hear it, you'll buy a lie because it sounds good and appeals to your flesh.
Mm-hmm. So, Dimis, you are no stranger to the fight. You're at all the places, doing all the things on social media, but even where it counts in person. Not even like this, but boots on the ground, face-to-face interactions. Obviously, you've gotten some pushback. I'm certain that you have, probably with work, probably with friends, family members that you've had. What do you think that the chief issue facing believers who are thinking about doing what we're doing, who are thinking about challenging the status quo, thinking about saying, no, that thing is not true. I understand that you have feelings about it, but still that thing is not true. What's the chief challenge facing people who they want to come out on the boat with us, but they're still afraid? What challenges are they facing, and how do we get them to just, hey, let go? Just come on, the water's fine.
I'll be honest with you. I've had very little pushback from almost anybody that I know. Only because they know my attitude, they know how I present myself. Everybody knows I'm very blunt. If something's on my mind, I'm gonna tell you. If it hurts your feeling, oh well. Now, I've had friends who distance themselves from me. These are like long-term friends, 15, 20 years. They're going about themselves. They don't want to deal with what I have to say or what I'm doing, which is fine. Everybody got their own lives. I'm not going to judge. As far as people who see, you got to realize it's good to have difference of opinions. It's good to have people who challenge your ideas, as well as like us challenging them. So if we don't have that, then the system it won't sustain itself. You need challenge. You need people that have different style of thinking, and you also have to look at the transition, where we were at to where we are now, and how that shift has changed the livelihood of a lot of people, not just us, not just people who are conservative, not just people who are very faithful, not everybody, because it's affecting all faiths, not just Christianity. So when I say the things I say, I want pushback. I want them to come and challenge me and tell me why you're thinking that way. That's not. I want them to say, "Well, I did this because of this and this and this," and that's when I have to ask them, "Why did you do it? Why?" But they don't come forward. And when it comes down to people who think like us, who are believers, who are Christian, who are not that faithful, but they practice Christianity as just a regular Christian, so that they're not really involved into religion and all that stuff. So you get a lot of people don't have the drive, don't have the charisma to come out and speak. They have a lot of fear in them. They have a fear of, if I say the wrong thing, I might lose my group of friends. I might lose my circle. I might be pushed out of my circle. I might be pushed out of, 30 years of life that I built for myself. I might be pushed out of that. So that fear itself drives people to be either silent, either not to get involved with anything, just keep their heads down, go about their lives, go to work, come home, watch their TV, and go to sleep, and not do nothing, basically. So the challenges are there. This is not just with this society; it's worldwide. It's the same way. It's just human nature. You're not gonna see everybody coming out and screaming and yelling and fighting for what they want. Majority of people will stay silent, and in one way, that's a very, very bad thing. In another way, it could be a good thing for some people. So the challenge, you have to be able to give them that confidence that if they say something, it's not gonna come with a backlash against them. So when I first went on to the school board meeting and I screamed at them, I cleared my head. I said, this definitely is gonna come with a backlash. And
We've got the video. It's still in StreamYard.
and I said, you know what? I don't care. Bring it on. I'm not scared. If these people want to cancel me, I'm going to cancel them first. That's the attitude I went in with, and that's the same attitude I still have. I'm the same way I work that I'm right here, that I talk to you guys. I'm the same way. I speak the same language. I spit out the same slurs. I spit out the same words. Attitude is the same. I don't have a filter. Everybody who's around me and knows me knows I don't have a filter. If I see something's not quite right, I will say something. At the same time, if I make a mistake, I'm going to own up to it. I'll say, yes, I made a mistake. And that's the thing. A lot of people say something and they're so stubborn and they're stuck by it and they don't want to back off. And this is why you have a lot of conflict going around, is because nobody wants to back down. Nobody wants to admit guilt. Nobody wants to admit fault. And this is where issues are rising at this point, is because now everybody is becoming stubborn. Everybody is saying, I am right and you're wrong. And this is why we have a division. Because people have been programmed at this point. They're programmed to stand their ground, don't back down. I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, and that's it. There's no middle ground anymore. There's no one willing to participate, no one's willing to talk, no one's willing to communicate. It's just either left or right, and that's it. There's nothing in the middle. So,
oh yeah, we get that all the time. I'm gonna jump back to the people you were saying. There's some people that they're just afraid. They don't want to deal with the conflict and stuff, and that kind of leads into Gary. I'm going to throw it back to you. That thing that you said, man, it's been ringing in my mind, because it was one of those moments, like pastor says something, theologian says something, and you're like, boom, that was nothing but the truth. I got to write that down. You said God has an opinion about everything, and it's just like, it doesn't get any simpler than that. God, who created the universe, has an opinion about everything, and we don't have to think about it because he wrote it down and sent it to us. We can see what it is. And I'm just like, come on, Gary.
Well, here's the thing. As you notice, you thank you again for bringing me on, because this is the second time and I'm able to just go a little bit more out there. But if anybody heard me the first time on Joe's show, I take it all back to the garden, because what we're living is the Twilight Zone. What we're living is fantasy land, fantasy island. This doesn't exist, people. Yeah, we're here, but this isn't real life as God intended it. The life that God intended was in the garden before the fall, when the animals were their friends, when you didn't have to work other than till the garden and nothing died. Okay? See, and God and his truth was the only truth. There wasn't any debating. There wasn't any of this, your truth or my truth. And guess what? That's the way it's going to be in heaven. There will be one way and one truth. It's not going to be my truth. It's not going to be your truth. It's God's truth. All of this that we're confronted right here is either truth as God sees it, or it comes from the kingdom of darkness. And that's why there's no way to really settle some of these discussions. Now, what ends up happening is it's good to, I wouldn't use the word debate, it's good to let people put out their points of view. And we have a whole bunch of different ones. The bottom line is, what's going on around the world that isn't good is, if you put out points of view, both of you may not be right? I mean, both of you may be wrong, but you both can't be right. And the problem is, when you put out points of view, you're supposed to come to a conclusion, and somebody's supposed to change their mind. And that's not what's happening. See, and we know we stand by truth. I don't put out my opinion. I have a lot of people. I remember I had a supervisor, and she asking me things at work, and I tell her, and she say, well, why are you bringing God into it? I want to hear what you have to say. I'd say, I'm telling you what I have to say what God has to say, because that's where I get my marching orders. I'm in that book. That is my marching orders. When I was in the world, I went by the way of the world. Okay, but now that I belong to Christ, I go by the way of Christ. And you can talk to people, and why you don't get pushback is because they really can't fight truth. They can't fight the truth of God. What they can do is yell and scream and walk away from you, or go into delusion mode and come up with some crazy ideas. But they really can't fight it. And I do want to say one thing about why I really don't get much pushback either. A lot of people that knew me when I was a sports writer, a lot of people that knew me when I managed Dwayne Kerr, the Funky Flute Man on D-Man's Music, a lot of people that knew me back in my past before I got born again in 1997 knew me to be highly egotistical, very selfish, about myself. And they all saw the change. Even the ones that don't want to admit it, they know something. They know I'm not the same person I used to be, and they know I couldn't make these changes in myself. So it's the light of Christ that shines. Like if you're going to live your life for Christ with him living through you, and that's my prayer every day, that he'll remove me and let people hear me. And every time I do my radio show, I say the same thing. My prayer is remove me and let them hear what you want said through my vocal cords. And I try my best to honor him and to honor his word. And that's where the strength comes from. That's where the power comes from. That's where the ability comes from to boldly proclaim the gospel. It's not me, people. Trust me. It's him living in me. And that's what we need to do. And we need to start. I've been working at this for a long period of time. If this is something you haven't been doing, just start. You'll take baby steps. You won't be John the Baptist overnight, but you get a chance to start. And once you start, God will grow you and teach you and move you along the way to where, if you want to get involved this way, that you can be used to be salt and light in public, or even in the fear of your own family, your workplace, the gym you go to, the bowling alley, the guys you hang out with, the women that you talk to. That's our mission field. Start at home.
Mm-hmm. So there's another group of people, and they're tough to deal with because they are believers, and we have this difference of opinion. And they've latched onto a lie, and I'll tell you what the lie is, but I'm interested in what you guys, how you deal with these people. I'm sure you have them in your life, in your church, and in your, that small, even group, that's your circle of influence. And if you've got any advice, because I do get questions from, surprise, a lot of my listeners are believers. All of my listeners are conservative. The liberals that watch the show, God bless you. Thank you so much for watching the show. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the messages that you send me. But those people are these. We shouldn't be engaging in this pushback because it's offensive, because it's hateful, because people don't like it. And they'll say something that it's some kind of, I don't want to say false doctrine. It's a weird doctrine that as a Christian, we shouldn't be offensive. The name of Christ offends all over the globe. So I don't get how they came to that conclusion. But I'm curious, one, are you running into these people, these Christians? And two, if you've got any tricks of the trade on how you deal with them, how you reach them, how you shepherd them along to know the truth of God's word. God's word, the truth is offensive to non-truth. It's offensive to liars. It's offensive to people that are snuggling with sin, not struggling with sin, as Pastor Robert Smith would say. But any tricks you guys have for dealing with those people, or any messages that you'd like to deliver to that individual, what do you got?
I'll go first. I just tell them life as a whole is offensive. You can't live your life if everything offends you. So if you walk down the road and you don't like somebody because of what they're wearing, that's offensive to you, where you're going to control the entire world because something doesn't align with your belief or with your ideology. And look, this is the problem we have. This is why we have cancel culture now. It's because people are being hurt for somebody else. their feelings is getting hurt for somebody else, and that somebody else could care less about what that offensive thing is. So in their head, they're making up this thing that somebody is saying something or doing something, it's offensive to these group of people, but that group of people have completely different ideology and vision. That group of people don't think that's offensive. It's the same thing with the Dave Chappelle thing that's been going on. Netflix people are offended, but yet there's a large group of people who say Dave Chappelle is funny. I don't see it as offensive. That's his content. That's his way of expressing his feelings. If you don't want to listen to that guy, switch the channel. Go somewhere else. But yet you have a group of people who think that this product or this item or this content is hurting this other group, and this other group can care less or has no idea what the hell is happening. And that's the problem. How you approach these people, it's tough. Because you are dealing with an ideology, you're dealing with a mentality that's already been programmed to think this way. So if you like Gary, he said he was born again in 97, correct?
Yes.
And before that, you were not the same person. You said like you were aggressive, you were arrogant, you were
No,
this.
I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't aggressive, but I was arrogant. I was my God. Me, myself, and I.
Right. So
The
selfish,
super
if
ego.
I may say, if that's a correct term, selfish, would that be
Very selfish. Like if you had something that, like if you could help me advance my career, or if you had something, or if you brought something to the table, I was really messed up. I didn't know it at the time. It cost me marriage. It cost me. So, it actually almost cost me my life because I was so ambitious. I just almost went off the rails. So.
right? So as Gary said, he didn't realize he was doing it because that's how he was programmed. He self-consciously he thought he was doing the right thing for himself, and there's a transition in life that happens where Gary went through, and at one point he changed because he saw that's not the way it should be, and that's not the way I need to be dealing with how I'm doing things in my life. So that changed things for him, but it took him that long to realize it. We have to be the same way. We have to realize, okay, so these little kids, these 20-year-olds who are screaming, racism, sexism, transphobic, this. So they've been programmed to think that way. They've been programmed that anything that says anything about the LGBTQ or anything about the black people or anything about the Asian people is offensive, regardless of what it is. Even if it's the truth, even if it's fact, it's offensive. Let's cancel it. We don't want to hear it anymore. It hurts our feeling because it's talking about that group, and I care about that group. Whether that group cares that is offending them or not, that's not the point. That group continues to say, hey, dude, that doesn't offend me. Stop saying it offends me. Stop saying it. It does not offend me. They don't care. These group of people who are programmed to think that everything's offensive, they're going to continue screaming and yelling and, yelling all the derogatory stuff that they say. It's offensive. I don't care what this group says anymore because that's not my concern. I want to get my point across because I want to cancel this thing because this group might get hurt, even though they're saying they're not hurt or it's not bothering them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about how they've been programmed. It's all about, and again, it starts from home. Everything starts from home. You spend more time at home than you spend outside when you're a young kid. So when you come home and this is how your livelihood is, you're going to grow up that way. Now, there are people who grow up at home, but the influence is outside of the home. When they come home, they're a completely different person. They don't show the influences that they're getting outside. And this is why we're having issues in schools, is because now the schools are turning into a programming center.
We're getting to the schools, the last part of the show. He read the script in my mind. But real quick, Gary, I don't want to call them squishy Christians, but I don't have a better word for them.
Well, as you know, the first two things. The first time I was on the show, I said we have to define what a Christian like. See, there's a lot of people who are Christians to go to church, but they're not born again. See, if you're born again, the Spirit of the Lord's inside of you, and that will lead you how to see each individual. The thing I wanted to say is, when I was growing up and in the world, and everybody does this pretty much, you have idols, and you know God says you're not supposed to have idols, but you have idols, and you pattern yourself. I couldn't play basketball worth a darn, and people that know me will know that, but I'm out there trying to pattern my game after Earl Monroe, spinning and trying to, you know, beat people off out of their sneakers. James Brown was my guy. James, so I wanted to look like, I want to sound like James Brown. I could do every dance he could do. I did the screams, and you know, and people even at the party said, "Do James Brown." So I'll do the mashed potatoes. See, once you come to Christ, and this is what I tell people: follow your leader. Follow your leader. Who is your leader? Your leader is Christ. So you look and see, what did he do? He told the truth. And the truth offends. What did he say he did? He said, I came and I brought a sword. I brought a sword. I brought a sword that will divide truth from error. Those that belong to the kingdom of heaven and those that belong to the kingdom of darkness. And the members of your own family who won't get saved will become your enemies. He told us, if you follow me, you will face persecution. It doesn't mean you're going to be put up on a cross, or like in some countries, you see what happens. And if we let these liberals keep going this way, they're going to eventually try and take us to that point. But the bottom line is, people are going to call you names. See, we're in an era of cultural Marxism. And that is where, you know, they've changed the language because they couldn't get us to they couldn't take over the country by revolution. So now they're doing it through language and changing the culture. So that anything of Western culture and Christianity is bad. Anything of the left, of progressivism, anything of communism, socialism, Marxism, that's good. See, but we're not just bad, we're evil. See, so what ends up happening is, what I try and tell people is, follow your leader. Understand what Jesus did. Understand that you will offend. Understand that God is truth, but he's also first love. And love is telling somebody what they need to hear. It does me no good if I have a friend who's a homosexual or a lesbian to tell them that that is acceptable to God. You know, if you love them, you have to tell them the truth, and the truth offends. A lot of truth offends, but the truth is the truth. And the only way to get into God's heaven is to be able to bow your knee, repent, and accept the truth of God. And that's what we've got to do. Tell it to them in love, and just tell them. If they say, well, you're offending me, I said, look, I'm following Christ. See, because they all don't want to pick on Jesus. Jesus said the same things we said, and he got a lot worse than we got. He ended up tacked to a cross. Okay. See, but he told the truth. And if you're a believer, God will, through the Holy Spirit, will lead you to see in a particular person when to hold them, when to fold them, how far to go. Maybe this isn't the person to talk to at this time. There's a woman. I'm going to mention this woman's name. I've never mentioned her name on, and I may get a little bit emotional here. Back in 1975, when I was working at the newspaper, Newsday, fresh out of college, there was a woman in the library that tried to get me to go to church, and I wanted to date her. And she had been a party girl back in the day. Her name is Melva Robinson, and she tried to witness to me. And I wasn't hearing it because I'm trying to be in the world, and I have my Playboy Club key, and I'm trying to be a player. Not a bad player, but a player, okay? And so, and I'm in the world. I'm a sports writer. I'm traveling around with all these sports teams, and the world was my oyster. I just want her to know, in 1997, after I had lost everything, after God took everything I thought was precious to me, I heard the voice and I repented, and I gave my heart and soul to him. I want her to know what she did in 1975, the seeds she planted, they came to fruition. And a lot of times when you give the truth, you may not see the fruit, but in heaven, you will get to see that person. You know, if everybody that goes that's going to make it to heaven, you'll see a lot of people there that you talk to along the way that didn't respond, but somewhere down the line, if they were meant to hear the voice, they're going to hear it. As Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. You'll eventually follow the voice of Christ.
I had a lady ask me to go to Bible study almost weekly for a decade, and I said no, almost weekly for a decade. Had an experience as a child. I said, I'm never stepping foot in a church again. I'm not getting married in a church, not being buried in a church, nothing. And then, of course, I went to Liberty. I ended up working for a church. I've been a worship pastor. My plan was crap. It turned out God had a different plan. Man, that's an awesome story, Gary. So we just got a little bit left. I know that education is a passion for both of you guys. And Dimis, we've seen you screaming it at the school board about this education versus indoctrination. And Gary, you had mentioned to me a time or two that this education issue is essential. It's what's being taught to students. It's what's shaping the character of the individuals that are going out to participate in society and lead this country. You know, and I just ask both of you, just why education? Why has that been placed on your heart? And what do we need to be doing in the American education system?
You know, it's interesting. If you look for education in the Bible, the only thing really in there is where God says, raise your kids in the way of the Lord, and they won't depart from it. See, the bottom line is the educational system as it is set up in this country is Marxist. It's run by communists. They started infiltrating through the Frankfurt School. We could go way, way back even before that. But they took over. They took over, started taking over in the 50s and started changing the curriculum. And almost all the colleges, the majority of the tenured college professors are stone cold Marxists. Some of them are communists. And they're teaching a different agenda. What they do, first off, they teach religion from the standpoint of all types of religion. They throw all these religions in there with Christianity, and they don't tell you, they make as if they're all valid and if they're all equal, like you can pick one and God's going to be fine with that. But if you go back to the K through 12, once you took the Bible and once you took creation out of the schools, now you're left with evolution, you're left with the Big Bang. And if there is no God and if there is no creator, then there is no judgment and there is no truth, which means now you can make up your own truth. Your truth is as good as somebody else's truth. And that's why, as Dimis was saying, you got these people saying, well, this is my truth and that's my truth and this is that. See, and that's the problem. The educational system is bankrupt. As I would tell people, like most people on my guess, if you can homeschool. If you can't, try and find, oh gosh, these public schools, they're terrible. Then you go and spend $40,000 a year to go turn them into Marxists. And here's the problem with the school also. You tell kids, you tell them to listen to your teacher and learn, but they're teaching them Marxism. They're teaching them everything that is contrary to the way of God and the way of the Bible, including the economics, the way you come out, get a FICO, get a debt so you can get a FICO score. No. You don't want to do that. The borrower is slave to the lender. You don't want to go that way. It's all in the Bible. But guess what? They've taken the Bible out of school. And by the way, how many times the parents said to me, why isn't God protecting our kids in school? I said, you booted them out. You booted them out of school. See, you're not welcome there.
And that's what I said on Tuesday, that we're gonna take the kids out of the school so the system will crumble on itself. Let it crash. Because earlier, before the public comment segment started, they were talking about how enrollment has dropped and how much of their budget they've lost.
Oh, people are pulling their kids. Gary, I don't know if you saw. Was it Loudon? Loudon just lost $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Loudon just lost $2 million of funding for our schools, and I say, great.
Hey,
good.
Attorney General Merrick Garland, that school board memo, like, we got to crack down on these parents that are going against our Marxist school teachers and school board. By the way, what you need to do is, run for school board. It's not that hard. You can win by like 10, 11,000 votes. We need to get a lot of these people off because the people on the school board determine the curriculum.
It's funny because I saw an interview today with Brenda, who she's the head of the school board, or I don't know what her title is, but
she's the chairman or the chairwoman. Who knows these days?
Be careful.
She's the chair.
No, political correctness does not go here.
Chair.
What you want to say?
She's the chair, and she was saying, parents come out and complain and yell, because it's a political thing, and we have an election, and at the time it was the presidential election, and I don't, and now she was talking about now how the election's going on, the governor election, and she's like, I don't even know why there's a tie. It shouldn't even be a tie at this point. So we already knew which way she's leaning. And
yeah, she's terrible.
And that's the thing. When you take these seats, when you go in as being a school board, you should not be a partisan hack. You should be bipartisan. You should not be political, period. The school board position should not be a political position. And I think anybody in that seat, their kids have to be by law, they need to be in the public school system for the district they're representing. Their kids have to be in that school system. No private school.
I couldn't run because my kids aren't stepping foot in one of those schools.
But seriously, like my kids are in public school. This is why I'm speaking out. Because I want my kids to have this social experiment. But if these people are going to be on that board, their kids have to be in the public school system. Their kids have to be in there. They should not be allowed to be in private school or homeschooled. Because once that happens, now their kids is on the line. Because their policy will affect their kids directly. Now, how many of those school board members have kids in the school system in Loudoun County?
No clue.
I guarantee you zero. I guarantee you none of them have their kids in the school in the public school system.
Dimis, can I say one thing? Because I know this is off topic, but notice what Dimis just said. They want to corrupt the public school system, but none of them are in the school system. I'm sorry to go down. I just have to say this, Joe. Notice the people running the country in Congress want to force us to take the jab, but they don't have to take it.
They're exempt.
Oh yeah. They're postal workers and port workers.
Look, they are exempt to include their staff.
Yes.
To include their staff.
I saw a story today, and I want to, it's funny you say that because Dimis and I have got some announcements. We're not ready to announce yet, but we're going to be covering more news and that type of thing. I saw a story today. I haven't had time to read it, but I think it said that Biden was going to scale back the mandate. And it's not because of his good graces. It's because Americans said no. Americans said no. We're not doing it.
Police, parents, people are in the street. They're in the street in New York.
I know.
Black Lives Matter and MAGA people banded together upstate New York at a rally over the mandate.
Hey, one thing Biden did, he actually brought the left and the right together because of this stupid mandate. I have to give him props for that because now you don't. And look, I'm going to get it. I have to get it.
Biden doesn't even know where he is. It's not him.
Gary, have you noticed something? Have you noticed there is no more BLM and Antifa riots? Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Have you also noticed there's no longer death tickers on TV and case tickers, COVID case tickers and death tickers? As soon as the election was over, all those tickers came down from all over the news network. All of them were.
It's Marxist fear mongering. You know, if they did a death ticker that showed every couple of seconds someone dies in a car accident, nobody would drive. The automotive industry wouldn't allow the big media, mainstream media, to post a ticker of automobile deaths.
Of course not.
They wouldn't allow it. Someone dying every couple of seconds.
Are you kidding me? Then nobody's going to drive.
Yeah, you think a COVID ticker is bad. If they had a ticker for that up there, if they had a ticker for medical malpractice where someone dies on a table or dies in the hospital or is sent home and dies.
Yeah.
Not because of malpractice, but actual, like a mistake. A physician just made a mistake, misdiagnosed, cut the wrong thing, packed the wrong thing, left a tissue or something where it wasn't supposed to be, and a patient dies.
And
that happens all the freaking time. But man, they had that COVID ticker up there.
But going back to my point, this is
yeah, we'll take it back.
the BLM and Antifa stuff died. Okay, no longer on the street. No one's talking about them. They are the thing of the past up until the 2024 election. They're gonna magically appear again.
If somebody gets shot, they'll pop up because isn't it interesting at the drop of a hat, 20,000 people in 20 cities around the country.
Gary, you mean to tell me for in this 9 months a cop has not shot a black guy
that made national news? I think there was one. And by the way, they may have been. It's always looking like as Rahm Emanuel and Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So
yeah, of course. I mean, like when it comes down to reporters, they have a saying: if it bleeds, it leads, right? If it bleeds, it leads. Right now, it's not leading, no matter how much it bleeds.
Right.
So they could line up people and shoot them, and they're not going to cover it because it's not going to give them the rating they want. And if you remember the Haitians that were by the border, all BLM had to say, hey, we're going to go protest. All of a sudden, overnight, they were all gone. All gone.
It's wild.
5,000 people overnight.
Joe, can I make one comment?
Please.
Mind, because I think this is important to get in, because I know there's a lot of people out there talking about, why are these three people talking about God and Jesus and government? Don't you know that religion and politics don't mix, which is my next podcast, by the way. Do religion and politics mix God and government? But I thought it was very important to remind people as believers, because a lot of believers say, well, I don't know if I should get involved. But one of the things you have to understand is Romans 13, that God ordained government. He ordained government, and it was to be accountable to him. And the government's primary functions are to enforce laws by force if necessary to protect the people from evil, not to perpetrate evil itself. Then when you hear about the separation of church and state, please understand what it is. That's why we're in this mess now. The separation of church and state was never to separate government from God. What it was, in the Constitution, Amendment 1, it says, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, which Jefferson, what they meant was, no, the federal government cannot deem one state a particular religion. Like you're not, like Maryland's not Baptist and you're not Episcopalian. It never had anything to do with separating God and government. It just said that the government can't force everybody in this state to be Catholic, everybody in this state to be this, that, or the other thing. That's what it always was. And if you notice, until they started pushing back in the 60s, nobody had a problem with it. Then all of a sudden, 200 years and it wasn't an issue. Now all of a sudden it became an issue.
Marxists can't allow for it. The first thing they've got to do is take down God, and the second thing they've got to do is take over the schools. And if they can get the newspaper and the media, then that's the cherry on top.
As a vet, you left one biggie out. You got to get the guns. You got to understand.
Oh yes, disarmament. Oh man,
because the reason Cuba and the reason Venezuela and the reason they couldn't fight Mao, they took the guns away. So when they realized you can snooker, when they realized you have a communist country and you want to take it back, you have a pea shooter and they have military-style weapons.
Can I get in on that for a sec? Can I get in on the gun thing for a second?
Please do.
Look.
It's Joe's show. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, go for it.
I'm giving him damn. Go.
So Australia, have you noticed how crazy lockdown Australia is? Because nobody has guns there, so they can't even go out and because the government's like, okay, none of these people have guns. They're not allowed to own guns. And
they just announced yesterday or the day before that their emergency powers they're extending indefinitely, COVID or no COVID. Australia's off the hook, you guys.
Right? And
go ahead.
Do you think if people uprise, what are they going to do? Do you think they can defend themselves against the police force and the military? Nope. This is why
we learn from Stalin, Lenin, and Mao. You would think we would learn, but everybody says, "Oh, let's give it a shot, please."
This is why here we haven't had a national lockdown to that extent that people are going to go to jail if you walk out. It's because people here are armed, and because of the Second Amendment, thank God for the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment was put there for tyranny. And tyranny government, not allowing the government to overstep its boundaries to control your life. So now, I mean, look at the countries who have been disarmed, like you said, Venezuela, Cuba, Australia, states like
Canada.
Iran, countries like Iran. There's a lot of other countries that have strict gun laws. Okay, so. And they're all government run. You can't.
And what you mean by that is those citizens fear their government. They are afraid of what their government is capable of.
My friend, that is the proper power of propaganda. So when you have a system in place and you put fear in people's heart, okay, putting fear in people's heart is very easy. All you have to do is show some images or speak of a very dramatic scene, and that's it. People feeling will change. In Iran, they will do the same thing. Like when there was Iran and Iraq war, they will show dead bodies, they will show explosions, they will show how Iraq was not being humane towards Iranians and how they were just blowing things up. Propaganda. To get more people emotional, to get more people involved and join. And at one point, what they were doing, what part of the propaganda was to send little kids to minefields to clear out the mines. And these kids will get like a little plastic key, and that's the key to heaven. So parents would send their kids as a sacrifice to clear out the minefields for the soldiers to advance further. That's the power of propaganda. Do you think there's no propaganda happening here? Oh, just wait. Everything.
You're right. It's about fear. When people are afraid, they'll give up liberties. We gave up some liberties after the 9/11 murder. Look at what happened after this China virus was thrust upon us. We're giving up more. And when people become afraid, they're willing to give up freedom and liberty that they don't realize there's a good chance you can't get it back.
And the unfortunate thing is majority will bend to fear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We'll have to come back and do an episode on propaganda because we just scratched the surface on that.
I would love to do a propaganda episode, man, because I got a lot to say about propaganda. I lived it.
Awesome. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to wrap this one. We'll pass the commercial bucket around. I will go first. I absolutely it's almost like there's a script, guys, but there isn't one. I don't think that making one would make the show any better. But Gary nailed it. Merrick Garland, in his official capacity as Attorney General, has lost his freaking mind with that memo where they're going to use the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, to investigate us because we're the terrorist, not the literal terrorists and the sex traffickers and the bomb makers and the drug cartels coming across the border, and the refugees, some who are legitimate, many who are not, flooding in. They're not the threat. Homeland Security doesn't care about them. They care about us parents. And this is part of standing up. Okay. So me and 5 other parents are actually suing Attorney General Merrick Garland in his official capacity. So guys, we filed this on October 19th. It's out for the world to see. It's been filed. Things are going to get pretty wild. That's just a fact of life. And if you want to help out with that financially, then you can go to my shop and order some Let's Go Brandon gear or my funny Biden quotes. I really like this stuff. Speaking of Marxists, this is Martin Luther King quotes versus smart guys like Ibram X. Kendi. Or we got Karl Marx and the King versus Clown shirts. So definitely something for you all to check out. That's thejoemobley.com/shop. Dimis, tell us about your show, and then Gary, tell us about this new podcast you're launching. You kind of dropped some breadcrumbs, but I want you to give it to us, the whole thing, the guest. So Dimis, you're up. Immigrant Corner.
So Immigrant Corner. Please tune into my show. Go ahead, subscribe, and hit the bell button when you get there. Also, check out my website, realimmigrantcorner.com. We got some merch there. We're gonna start putting out some content in the website, news and whatnot. So it's an upcoming website. So bear with me. I'm putting more products as I get them and I make them. Gary, to you.
Yes, the name of my show is United Patriots Uprising with Gary Binford. It's a podcast, and it airs every other Tuesday. It's high-profile conservative guests, and we deal with topics. It just downloaded this Tuesday. The topic was Saving America. It's up to us, and the guests were Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, Mike Lindell, John Dimis, Sean Farish, and Lucretia Hughes. On November 9th, God and government, do religion and politics mix? It's already been recorded. The guests are Pastor Jack Hibbs from out in Calvary Chapel in Chino Hills, California, Nick Searcy, Star Parker, Bishop E.W. Jackson, Virginia Prodan, who faced down a communist Nicholas Ceausescu's assassin in Romania, and Dr. Steve Turley. So it airs twice a month. You can get it. You can go to radioinfluence.com, or you can go to your favorite podcast platform. That's where you'll find it. And it's relatively new. The show that just downloaded this Tuesday was the 4th one. Because previously it was a live show. I got blessed, thank God, and I got national distribution. So now it is twice a month podcast.
Awesome. And guys, Gary sent me kind of the guest and the write-up. You guys really have to get on and listen to that episode. Again, it airs on November 9th. Dimis, I've been failing. I got to get your links, the right links in the description. I'll start with this episode. I'm going to put those links in the description below. If I forget, just text me or beat me over the head next time you see me. No guys, problem. This has been a ton of fun. We will have to do this again sometime before too long. And propaganda. I mean, maybe we're calling it. That might be the topic of the day. But unfortunately, this episode has come to an end. Everyone in the chat, everyone watching online on Facebook and on YouTube, thanks so much. There's a good chance that I won't be on these platforms forever. So I highly encourage you to subscribe on Rumble, or go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, that Plain Jane audio podcast. Just because, I mean, who knows how long this will be on YouTube. That's all I got, guys. It's been a pleasure and a blessing, as always.
Thanks for having me, Joe and Dimis. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity.
The
God
pleasure
bless
is
you and your
ours.
family.